Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Okay. Last week we started one main topic relating to managerial economics. So that means in order to maximize profit, we discuss what are the key variables that an organization should manage, and under that one main area. So because in order to manage revenue, we discuss two main variables should be managed. That is price and the quantity. We started with the price theory. So under the price theory, we discuss demand analysis. Under that, the key concepts related to demand we discuss, and then we discuss supply analysis. So similar concepts applicable to supply we discuss, and then so we discuss in order to arise the market transaction, both these factors should be considered simultaneously. So that's why we discuss about market equilibrium. So under the market equilibrium, so we discuss that is the point where there is no either excess demand or excess supply. In other words, there is no shortage or surplus. And but once the equilibrium is created, we discuss equilibrium will not be constant for a particular product or a service. It will change. So the main factors to change the equilibrium we discuss. Right. So what are the main factors that can lead to change the equilibrium? That is due to the changes in market forces. But in addition to the changes in market forces, we discuss equilibrium can also change due to government intervention. But before we discuss government intervention, we discuss we have to discuss another key area in economics, that is elasticity. Right. So we'll discuss the key elasticity concept at the beginning. After that, we can move to the government intervention part. Right. So elasticity, as we discuss, so this is one important concept in economics, right? Elasticity, right? So what is the meaning of elasticity, right? So what is the meaning of elasticity?
Price response.
Elasticity is the response, exactly. Elasticity is the responsiveness, right? So elasticity is the responsiveness, right? So then how that concept elasticity means responsiveness. So then what is the relationship, right, of this concept to demand and supply analysis, right? Elasticity means the responsiveness. That's the exact word, responsiveness, right? So how can we use this concept, elasticity concept, in demand and supply theory, right? So responsiveness means there we need to analyze what is the response of one variable with respect to another variable, right? So in other words, when we apply this concept to the demand and supply analysis, right? So if we start with elasticity of demand, right? What is the meaning of elasticity of demand? It is the responsiveness of demand to the factors affecting to the demand, right? So therefore, we can call the elasticity of demand means the responsiveness of demand, right? Responsiveness of demand to the factors affecting to that. In other words, we can call to its determinants, right? So that is the meaning of elasticity of demand, elasticity concept, and we can apply that to the demand and supply theory. So the elasticity of demand means the responsiveness of demand to its determinants, because we discussed last day what are the factors that affect to demand, right? So we discussed there are a number of factors affecting to demand. So under the elasticity of demand, we need to analyze when these factors change, what is the response of demand. So that is the meaning of elasticity of demand, right? So elasticity of demand means what is the response of demand when these factors change. The importance of analyzing this, when these factors change, we know that definitely will affect to demand, but all these factors will not similarly equally affect to the demand, right? Some factors will affect very significantly, some factors will affect less significantly. So that depends on a particular concept known as elasticity. That is what we analyze under the elasticity. So elasticity of demand means the responsiveness of demand to its determinants, right? So under this, under this we usually when we analyze this elasticity of demand, we analyze that with respect to several key variables, right? So even though we discussed there are a number of factors affecting to the elasticity of demand we mainly analyze with respect to several key factors. What are the main factors? What are the main factors we analyze elasticity of demand? Right. So if you refer any economic book, you will see elasticity of demand has been analyzed with respect to three main factors. What are these three main factors?
Price of the own product.
Price of the own product. Yeah. So that is one main factor. Price of the own product. Then
Income.
consumer income. Consumer income. Right. Then
Price of substitute.
Price of, yeah, not only substitute, we can say prices of other goods, right? So exactly correct. So those are the 3 points that we consider when we analyze elasticity of demand. Price of the own product, prices of the other product, and consumer income. Right. So those are the main factors we consider generally, because certain factors, the other factors, actually we can analyze the responsiveness of content demand with respect to any of these factors. But the issue is certain factors we can't measure. For example, quality of the product. So we can't measure what is the change in quality. So that cannot be measured, right? So that's why we mainly consider these factors: price of the own product, prices of the other products, and consumer income. So those are the main factors we consider. In order to analyze elasticity of demand. So elasticity of demand mainly analyzed with respect to three main factors, right? The three main factors are price of the own product and the prices of the other products, right? Prices of the other product. Prices of the other products, and the next one is consumer income. Consumer income. So with respect to these three main factors, elasticity of demand is analyzed, right? So elasticity of demand can be analyzed with respect to these factors. But you know, it's not limited to these factors. We can analyze the elasticity of demand with respect to any factor. But that's why I mentioned, usually we consider these factors, right? Why there is a difficulty to analyze some other factors. So that's why commonly these factors are used to measure or analyze the elasticity of demand, right? But it may be possible to analyze the elasticity of demand with respect to any factor, right? With respect to any factor, this can be analyzed, but mainly, right, elasticity of demand we measure with respect to these three main factors, right? Which can be analyzed with respect to any factors, but we mainly elasticity of demand mainly analyzed with respect to these factors, right? So these three main factors it is analyzed, right, with respect to these three main factors, that is price of the own product, prices of the other products, and consumer income. So when we analyze, when we consider price of the own product, we use a special term for that. What is that? What is that elasticity condition? We call it which elasticity, right? When we consider the price of the own product, we call it price elasticity of demand, right? So we call it price elasticity of demand. Price elasticity of demand. And so when we consider the prices of the other goods, we use a special term for that. That is called cross elasticity of demand. Cross elasticity of demand, right? Haras illum nammetave kelgena. Cross elasticity of demand. And when we consider the consumer income, we call it
income elasticity.
Income elasticity of demand, right? That is known as income elasticity of demand, right? Income elasticity of demand. So the elasticity of demand mainly analyzed with respect to these key factors, right? And when we consider, right, a price elasticity of demand, right? So when we analyze the price elasticity of demand, so what is the meaning of price elasticity of demand? So that we can easily discuss. Once we discuss price elasticity of demand, the balance part will be very simple, right? Very easy. because the main elasticity concept to discuss here is the price elasticity of demand. Once we understand the key points related to the price elasticity of demand, then it is very easy to understand the other concepts, right? The price elasticity of demand, right? What is the meaning of price elasticity of demand? The price elasticity of demand means, right, under price elasticity of demand, what we analyze, what we measure.
Price responsiveness to the demand.
Yeah, that means when the price of the own product change, what is the response of the quantity demand, right? Okay, so you mentioned one very important point, right? What is that? So here, when we measure the responsiveness, right? So here we have to face one challenge, because, for example, price elasticity of demand means what is the responsiveness of demand with respect to the change in price. If the price change, what is the response of the quantity demand? But the issue we have to face here, change in price, which is measured using currency, maybe rupees or dollars, but change in quantity demand. So here the demand, we measure change in demand, we measure as the change in the number of units, right? So then how can we compare a change in rupees and change in units? Then it is not very easy. Then always this responsiveness is measured as what? As a always this response is measured as a percentage change. Otherwise we can't measure, because here it is change in rupees, here change in units, right? Here also change in rupees and here change in units, rupees and units, right? Maybe number of units or maybe kilograms or liters. So we can't measure that. We can't compare that, right? We can't compare. So that's why always the responsiveness of demand we measure as what? As the percentage change in quantity demand. So always we measure as the percentage change, you know, to denote change. What is the sign we use in mathematics? We use to measure change.
Triangle.
Sorry?
Triangle.
Yeah, so we call it what? We call it delta.
Delta.
Delta. Is it, yeah, so this is the sign, right? So it is the percentage change in quantity demand. So this is what we measure, right? So always we measure the percentage change in quantity demand. So that is how we measure the elasticity of demand. Always we measure what is the percentage change in quantity demand when the price change by certain percentage, right? For example, what is the meaning of price elasticity of demand? Under the price elasticity of demand, we calculate, right? So we calculate when, right, if the price change, right? So here we have to use the percentage change in price when price of a particular product change by certain percentage. What is the percentage change in quantity demand of the product, right? So that is what we measure, right? What is the percentage change in quantity demand? So that is what we measure. So under the elasticity of demand, we measure what is the percentage change in quantity demand, right? Quantity demand when the price change by certain percentage. That is the meaning of price elasticity of demand, right? The price under the price elasticity of demand. So this is what we measure. So this is what we measure, right? The meaning of price elasticity of demand, when the price of a product change by certain percentage, what is the percentage change in quantity demand, right? So which we can also write like this, right? So this is the change in quantity demand, percentage change in quantity demand. So it should be divided by the percentage change in the price. When the price change by certain percentage, what is the percentage change in quantity demand? So that is the meaning of price elasticity of demand, right? So this is what we need to, what we measure using the price elasticity of demand. So price elasticity of demand means when the price of a product change, right, by certain percentage, what is the percentage change in quantity demand? So it is not difficult to analyze this. And you know, when we calculate this price elasticity of demand, when we calculate what is the percentage change in quantity demand with respect to the percentage change in price, right? So we can get different types of answers, right? So definitely it is possible to get different types of answers, right? What are the different possible answers we can get, right? So the possible answers we can get for this calculation, right? So we can divide into 5 main categories, right? The answers we can get for this price elasticity of demand, we can categorize into uh, 5 main categories, right? The answer we get for this calculation, right? Answer we can get for this calculation, we can categorize into 5 categories, right? Mainly the answer we can categorize into 5 categories. What are the different answer, types of answers we can get for this calculation, right? So when we calculate the percentage change in content demand with respect to the percentage change in price, sometimes the answer may be 0, right? So price elasticity of demand may be 0, right? Usually this PED, price elasticity of demand, we denote as PED, right? Sometimes PED may be equal to 0. What is the meaning of that? If the answer we get for this calculation is 0, what is the meaning?
It's elastic. Price is elastic.
Yeah, so I mean, what is the meaning of that? So that means in order to get answer of 0 for this calculation, we know definitely one of these changes should be 0. Which one should be 0? Percentage change in quantity should be 0, percentage change in price should be 0.
Price.
Sorry, quantity or price? Percentage change in
Yeah.
quantity should be 0, right? If this price 0, that means if the denominator is 0, what is the meaning? The answer is infinity. But here, if the percentage change in quantity is 0, then if the numerator is 0, when you divide 0 by any number, answer is 0, right? So that means sometimes the price elasticity of demand may be equal to 0, right? Sometimes the price elasticity of demand may be, right, more than 0, but it may be less than 1, right? So it may be PED may be greater than 0, right? So we can put PED may be greater than 0, but it may be less than 1, right? So that is another possible answer. PED may be greater than 0, right, but less than 1, right? Another possible answer, sometimes the answer may be equal to PED may be equal to 1, right? That is another possible answer, right? So here I'm trying to show you what are the possible answers we can get for this calculation, right? So what are the possible answers we can get for this calculation, right? So one possible answer is 0. Another possible answer is price elasticity of demand may be more than 0 but less than 1. Another possible answer, it may be 0, right? Another possible answer, it may be more than 0, right? It may be more than more than 1. PD may be more than 1 but less than infinity, right? So infinity, we can use that infinity sign, yeah, here. So this is another possible answer. It may be less than infinity. And the other possible answer, the PED may be equal to infinity, right? So these are the possible answers you can get. For this calculation, right? Is that clear? So here it may be equal to infinity, like this. When you calculate the price elasticity of demand for a particular product, the answer for this calculation, so it is possible, right? So this is theoretically possible to get these 5 types of answers. Sometimes answer may be 0. Sometimes answer is more than 0 but less than 1. Sometimes it is equal to 1. Sometimes it's more than 1. Sometimes it's infinite, right? So if the answer is 0, as you mentioned earlier, right, that indicate the percentage change in quantity is 0, right? Practically, what is the meaning of that? Even if the price of the product change, the quantity demand will not change. That means the quantity demand will not respond. That means it is not responding, right? So what is the term we use in economic for that type of products.
Unitary
Even
elastic.
sorry,
Unitary elastic.
which elastic?
Unitary.
Unitary.
Unitary. Zero.
Yeah, zero means actually it is inelastic. Inelastic, and if it is zero, we use a special term that is perfectly inelastic. So we use the term perfectly inelastic demand, right? Perfectly inelastic demand, right? So that means it is not responding at all. So that's why we call it perfectly inelastic demand, right? Perfectly inelastic. That means it is not responding at all, right? It's not responding at all, right? That's why we call it perfectly inelastic demand, right? So any example for this type of product? Any example? Even though the price change, the content demand will not change. Price may be increasing or decreasing, but content demand will not change.
Oil. Crude oil.
Sorry?
Crude oil.
Crude oil. Okay, that may be very close, right? But usually that example is more closer to the other next category, which is called inelastic. Inelastic, because when the crude oil price increase, it's true that the demand will not decrease significantly, but there may be small, very small change, decrease, right? If the oil price is very high, people will be more careful when using this product, right? So we'll limit unnecessary, maybe unnecessarily they will not use for everything. So there may be certain type of control, but definitely there will not be significant decrease, right? Very insignificant decrease will be there. So that example will be more appropriate, more for the next category. Very small response, but right. Usually for this category, it's not very easy to find example, right? That means the content demand will not change at all, even if the price change, right? I remember in our school days, our school right. So in most of the economic books, one example is even for this category. Very limited examples are there, perfectly inelastic, right? The content will not change, even though the price change, right? So what is the example you may have seen in economic books, maybe when you are doing A level or some other economics module, right? Most frequently used example is salt, right? Salt, Lulu, right? This category. That means even if the price increase, the relevant quantity will be used, right? So the consumption of that product sold, right? The quantity will not be reduced if the price increase, right? And even if the price decrease, right? Larger quantity will not be used, same quantity will be used. So that's why. So one example we can consider for this category, perfectly inelastic, is sold, right? Another example I have seen in an economic book, coffee, right? This, right? Coffee, mini pet, right? So there is a perfectly inelastic demand, right? So very limited examples we can find for this category, but more, a lot of examples can be identified for this category, right? What is the meaning of this? When the price change, content demand change, but the change in the content demand is very much less significant than the change in price. So that is a very practical, very common category. For that you mentioned, right? The example you mentioned is correct. What else? For that we can identify number of examples in elastic. That means even if the price change, the quantity change only by very small percentage. What are the other examples we can use for that category? Right? What are the other examples for this category? Inelastic. When the price change, content demand change, but the change in the content demand is very much less significant. In other words, we can call the content demand is less than proportionate. change in the content demand is less than proportionate to the change in price. That is the meaning of inelastic, right? For that, number of examples we can identify. What are the examples? Even if the price increase, we have to use that, right? So one thing you mentioned, oil, crude oil. So in addition to that, what are the other examples? Right? So when we consider medicine, right, and electricity, water, right? So these are we call inelastic products, right? So for that type of products, there is inelastic demand, right? Inelastic demand is there for that type of products, right? So that is called inelastic. Right? Sometimes the demand, it's possible to get an answer equal to 1. What is the meaning of that? If the
Unitary.
answer is, yeah,
That is unitary.
sorry,
That is unitary.
yeah. So we use the term unitary elastic, and what is the meaning? What is the meaning? When the price change, the content demand change exactly by the same percentage, right? So that is called unitary elastic demand, right? So that is called unitary elastic demand, right? Unitary elastic demand, because when the answer will be 1 if both factors equal, right? Same percentage change in price and percentage change in content demand both equal. So that is called the unitary elasticity, right? Unitary elastic demand. And another possible condition, the answer may be more than 1. More than 1, right? So what is the meaning of that? When the price change, the content is changed by large percentage, right? Large percentage. When the price change, there will be very high response from the content demand. If the price increase, there will be huge decline in the content demand. Or if the price decrease, there will be huge increase in the content demand. So that is called, what is the term we use for that? That is called elastic. Yeah, so that is cool. That means highly responding, very high elasticity is there. So that is called elastic demand, right? Elastic demand. So that also applicable to a number of products, right? So that means certain products are there as soon as price increase, right? So when there are a number of options for the consumers, the demand will respond very significantly, right? That is another possible category. The other possible, theoretically possible condition is answer may be infinity. Answer is infinity means what? Again, one thing should be 0. In this case, denominator should be 0. Right? That means even without change in price, it is possible to change the content demand. Right? Again, so we can see it's not possible to identify example for this. Yeah.
Perfectly elastic.
Yeah. So this is called perfectly elastic demand. Right. So this is called perfectly elastic demand. Right. But as I mentioned earlier, it's not easy to find example for this category. Right. So right. So even if the price elasticity of demand we categorize into 5 categories based on the possible answers that we can get, practically only 2 categories we can see very often. What are the 2 categories?
Inelastic.
Inelastic and
Elastic.
elastic, right? Practically we can identify 2 main categories, that is elastic and inelastic, right? Elastic and inelastic. These are very rarely we can identify, and it's not possible to give definite example for these categories, right? Because right, sometimes very few examples for this category we can identify, which can be argued by some different parties, but these are the 2 main practically identify the elasticity categories, price elasticity categories, inelastic and elastic, right? So these are the 2 main categories, right? So it is important to know the meaning of these 2 categories, right? Actually, this elasticity, price elasticity is very important for business organization, right? So it's very important for business organization when they are making business decision, right? Actually, it is important not only for the business organization, it is also important for the government, right? So elasticity is not just a theoretical concept, That is practically important concept, right? So we'll now, these 5 categories are there, right? As I mentioned, the 2 most important categories are elastic and inelastic, right? Elastic and inelastic. So if we use 2 simple graphs, we can understand this very much more clearly. We can identify the meaning of this elastic and inelastic demand, right? So using simple diagram, we can understand this very easily, right? The meaning of elastic and inelastic demand. If the demand is elastic, right? What do you think if we write the demand curve for a product with elastic demand, the demand curve will have a high slope or low slope, right?
High slope.
Demand, yeah,
High slope.
high slope or low slope. Elastic demand means demand curve will be very high or very low. Slope of the demand curve will be high or low.
Low slope.
Sorry,
Low slope.
low slope, right? So definitely the slope of the demand curve will be very low, right? So very low slope will be there. But if the demand is inelastic, the slope will be very high, right? So very high slope will be there, right? Therefore, the slope of the demand curve also indicate the nature of the product, right? So if the demand curve for a product is like this, relatively low slope, that means demand is highly elastic. If the demand curve is demand curve has a high slope, that indicate the demand is relatively inelastic, right? Relatively inelastic. So that we can identify very easily, right? So very easily we can identify if we consider the particular product has uh, demand like this. So this is the current price and this is the current quantity, right? Suppose this is the demand curve for a particular product. This is the demand curve for a particular product, and currently this is the price of the product. This is the price of the product, and this is the quantity. And this area represent a special part. What is this part? This shaded area represents special part. What is that? What is that? This area represent what? Right? I mean, if this is the price of the product, if this is the price of the product, right? If this is the price of the product, let's say P1. So this is the current price of the product, and this is the current quantity of the product, right? Current quantity of the product, right? So then so this particular area, this area, right? So if I say this way, this area represents special part. What is that? This area represent what? This area represent price into quantity means what? You already know that. This is the price of the product and this is the quantity the firm can sell from that product. That means what is this? This shaded area. Sorry?
This revenue.
Revenue. This shaded area represent the revenue, price of the product, and this is the quantity. So at this price they can sell this quantity. That means at this price this is the total revenue of the firm, right? And now consider you can consider the firm is considering in order to increase revenue for a product like this, the firm should increase the price or decrease the price. Right? Firm is considering to increase the revenue from this product. Then the firm should increase price or decrease price?
Decrease price.
Decrease price. The firm has to decrease the price of this product. Right? The firm should decrease the price of this product in order to increase revenue. So if they decrease the price, right? So now we can see what will happen. Right? So we can identify what will happen if they decrease the price of this product. If the price of this product decrease, we can see there will be a huge increase in the quantity. Right? Why? The demand is inelastic. Sorry, demand is elastic. Since the demand is elastic, right? Since the demand is elastic, when there is a decrease in price, when price decreases by certain percentage, right? When the price decrease by certain percentage, the quantity demand will change by large percentage. So that is the meaning of elastic demand, right? The meaning of elastic demand means when the price change, the quantity demand change by higher percentage, right? So that is the meaning of elastic. So now you can see, right? So this is the revenue from this product, right? We can see, so when you see these two revenue areas, you can see this part is common to both the condition. Therefore, we can ignore this. Now we can identify one important point from this diagram, right? Because this part was common, but this is the incremental revenue based on the previous one. This is due to the new one. In other words, if we consider the initial revenue, this was the initial revenue, and when they decrease the price, what will happen? This revenue decrease, but this is the increase, right? So that means we can identify this is the decrease in let's say total revenue due to decrease in what? Decrease in price. So that is the decrease in total revenue due to the decrease in price. So which right? So this part shows the decrease in revenue due to the decrease in price, right? Due to the decrease in price, right? But even though the revenue decreased due to the decrease in price, but what happened? Due to the increase in quantity, revenue increased much more than that. So that represent, right, increase in total revenue due to the increase in quantity, right? Increase in quantity. Increase in quantity demand, right? So now, which one is more significant? So increase in revenue due to the increase in quantity demand is more significant, and due to that, what will happen? The total revenue of this firm will increase, right? The total revenue will increase, right? So which means we can identify when the demand is elastic. When right? So what they should do to the price in order to increase revenue, right? So what they should do to the price in order to increase total revenue? What is the relationship between price and total revenue? We can see
price decrease.
Exactly. In order to increase the total revenue, price should be decreased. Right? When the price decrease, right? When the price decrease, the total revenue will
increase.
Total revenue will increase, right? So in other words, if this firm increase the price, what will happen? If they increase the price, total revenue will go down, so decrease, right? So this is the relationship between price and total revenue when the demand is elastic, right? So when the demand is elastic, so this is the condition, right? So is it possible for the firm to apply the same strategy for all the products?
No, can't.
It's not possible. Yeah, it's not possible, right? For example, now suppose this is the price of this product, right? So this is the price, right? Price of this product. Price of this product currently this, and this is the current quantity. This is the current quantity. Current quantity is this, right? Now, sorry, current quantity is this. Right. So this is the price they are selling the product, and at that price, so this is the quantity they can sell. Right. And we can see the demand is relatively inelastic. Right. So which means this is the revenue, right? Current revenue this firm earn from this product. Right. Currently, this is the revenue they can generate from this product. Right. But in order to increase the revenue from this product, what they should do? They should decrease the price or increase the price.
Increase the price.
They have to increase the price, right? The same strategy we applied for the other product, we can't apply here, right? Therefore, in this case, in order to increase revenue, the price should be increase. Price should be increased, right? So when the price increase, you can see the quantity demand. There is no huge decline in the quantity demand. The decrease in the quantity demand is less than proportionate, right? So even if the price increased by very high percentage, right? So you can see the price increased by very high percentage, but the decrease in the quantity demand is less than, right? The quantity demand decreased by only smaller percentage, right? Smaller percentage. So due to that, what will happen? The total revenue will increase, right? So you can see the total revenue under the new price is this. So this one again, we can see according to the earlier analysis, you can see this part is common. This part is common for both categories, and this is the decrease in price. Decrease in total revenue due to the decrease in quantity, but this is the increase in total revenue due to the increase in price, which is more significant, right? So this is this is the decrease in total revenue due to the decrease in quantity demand, right? So this is the decrease in due to the decrease in quantity demand, but this is the right. So here I have put decrease. It is actually increase. Here it is increase. All right. So here this is the increase in total revenue due to the increase in price, right? Due to the increase in price. Right. So in this case, you can see total revenue will decrease due to the decrease in quantity, but due to the increase in price, the quantity, the total revenue will increase more than that. That means, what is the relationship between price and total revenue in this case? Right? If the demand is elastic, what is the relationship? Right? Actually, in order to increase revenue, what they should do? They should increase the price. Increase the price. But if they decrease the price, total revenue will decrease. Right? So we can identify here there is a positive relationship between price and total revenue, but here it is negative. Right? So this graph indicates very clearly the same pricing strategy cannot be applied to all the products. That's why the firms should identify whether the demand for their products is elastic or inelastic. And based on that, they should consider, in order to increase the revenue, whether they should increase the price or decrease the price, right? So so this is important for a firm, right? So mainly, as I mentioned, even though theoretically we divide the price elasticity of demand into 5 categories, practically there are only 2 main categories, and those 2 categories are very important for the firms when they are making business decisions, right? For that, they should know what are the main factors affecting to this price elasticity of demand, right? What are the main factors affecting to the price elasticity of demand? Why some products have elastic demand while some other products have inelastic demand, right? So we need to know what are the main factors affecting to the factors affecting to the elasticity of demand, right? Let's say price elasticity of demand. What are the main factors affecting to the price elasticity of demand, right? Why some products have elastic demand while some other products have inelastic demand? What are the main factors, right? Some products are there, when there is a small change in the price, there is a huge change in the quantity demand. But some products are there, even if the price change by huge percentage, the quantity demand change only by small percentage. Why? Right? What are the main factors? what are the main factors affecting to this price elasticity of demand? What are the main factors affecting to the price elasticity of demand? Right? What are the main factors? Why some products have elastic demand while some other products have inelastic demand? What
Quality
are
of
the
the
main,
product?
sorry?
Quality?
Quality. Quality, and based on that, which means, okay, so that means if the product has a very high quality, even if the price increase, consumers will buy that. So that's what you mean, right?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, so to some extent, yeah, so that is actually, that is one factor. If the product is considered as a very quality product, so even if the price increase, the consumers, some consumers will buy that, but still, uh, uh, that may not be possible for all the consumers, right? So when even if the product is with very high quality, when the price increase, it may be not affordable for some consumers, but still those who have the purchasing power will buy that if the product has a very good quality. So that's good. That's actually one valid factor affecting to the price elasticity of demand. Actually, what is the main factor? Because if the price increase, usually what happens? Consumers generally decrease the quantity, right? But even if the price increase, right? So when price increase, in order to decrease the quantity demand, we should have one important thing. What is that?
Substitution?
Substitutes. That is the most important thing. Availability of substitutes, right? Actually, when the price increase, we can stop buying that product only if we have alternatives, only if we have substitutes. But if we don't have substitutes, what will happen? Even if the price increase, we have to buy, right? So one example, one good example you mentioned earlier, crude oil,
Oil. Crude
right?
oil.
Why even if the price increase, we know sometimes there is a huge increase in prices as a percentage, very high percentage, but is there a significant decrease in the quantity? No,
No.
very small. Yeah, when we compare the increase in price, maybe very small decrease in quantity. Why? Because there are no options, there are no substitutes, right? Therefore, what is the main factor affecting to the price elasticity of demand? Availability of substitutes, right? Availability of substitutes, right? That is the main factor affecting to the price elasticity of demand. Availability of substitutes, right? So this we can explain in another way, right? This we can explain in another way. That means whether the definition is broad or narrow, right? Definition is broad or narrow. Definition is broad, right? Broad or narrow. Broad definition means what? Broad definition means no alternative, no substitutes, right? For example, when we consider, for example, vegetables, right? Definition is very broad, right? Definition is broad means what? No close substitutes. When we consider vegetables, if vegetable price increase, right? Uh, all the vegetable price increase, then what will happen? What will happen to the demand? That means will consumers stop buying vegetables, right? Especially in a country like our country, we know vegetables, that's a main part of our meal, right? So if vegetable price increase, vegetable, so that's a broad definition which does not have proper substitute, right? Then what will happen? Still will buy, right, a certain quantity. But when we consider one particular vegetable, for example, carrot. Now what is the definition? Definition is very narrow. That's a narrow definition. Vegetable, broad definition. But carrot, that is very narrow definition. Vegetable price increase. If the overall vegetable price increase, but still we have to buy vegetable. But if carrot price increase, is it essential
Yeah.
to buy carrot?
No.
No. We have alternative, right? We have number of alternatives. Therefore, if vegetable price increase, we have to buy somehow some vegetable. But if one particular vegetable price increase, right, we have number of alternatives, right? So only if one vegetable price increase, then the demand will be significantly decreased, right? So in this way, definition, right? Another example would be soap. When we consider soap, right? Sabak, soap. Definition is broad. So if soap price increase overall, right? So what still we have to buy. But one particular number of options, right? So that is what we call, right, availability of substitute. For that, very good examples like oil and nowadays maybe electricity, right? So these are products without proper substitutes. Very difficult to meet the requirement without these products. So that's why these products have very high elastic or inelastic demand. When there are no substitutes, demand will be elastic or inelastic.
Elastic.
Right? When there are no substitutes, demand will be inelastic. Right? But when there are a lot of substitutes, demand will be elastic. Right? So that's why when there are no substitutes, for example, oil, right? No substitutes. So then the demand will be inelastic. But whenever there are substitutes, demand will be elastic. When there are substitutes, we can easily shift from one product to another product, right? So that means the demand will be elastic. So that is one main factor affecting to the elasticity, price elasticity of demand. Right? What else? In addition to this availability of substitute, what are the other things? You know, all the products, sorry, income. Okay, income also we can put it in this way. What is the percentage of our income we spend for the product, right? So for a particular product, if you spend only very small percentage, right? Suppose out of your income, you spend only very small percentage to buy a particular product, right? For example, suppose you are buying a particular magazine or a newspaper periodically, right? So you like to read that newspaper very much, so you buy that product, right? Suppose the price of that newspaper is 100 rupees, right? So 100 rupees as a percentage of income, that is very small, right? As a percentage of income, very small, right? Suppose the price of this newspaper increased to 150 as a percentage of price increase, there is 50% increase in price, very high percentage in price. But right, as a percentage of income, still we can manage. That means 150 rupees as when we consider as an amount, and when we consider that amount as the percentage of our income, not the percentage increase in price, percentage as an income, right? Because now the price is 150. If we like that newspaper, 150 still we can manage. Right? So that means if the percentage of your income you spend for the product is relatively small, we can still buy that. We will not stop buying that product. That means demand will be inelastic. But suppose to buy a particular product, we have to spend very high percentage of our income. Right? So to buy a particular product, we have to spend about right. Suppose we are paying rent for the house, right? The rent out of our income, we have to pay nearly 50% of our income for the rent. Suppose rent increase further, then what will happen? We will not be able to afford. That means if we are spending very high percentage of our income to buy a particular product, then if the price increase, definitely we have to respond. Otherwise, we can't buy that product further. That means, right? So that is another important factor. Percentage, right? Percentage of income, percentage of consumer income spent for the product. Right? So that is another very important factor. And for all the products, when the price increase, our response will not be same for all the products. Some products are there, even if the price increase, we have to buy. Some products are there, if the price increase, we can manage. That means, what is that factor? Whether the product is luxury or necessary, exactly, right? So that is the another main factor affecting to the price elasticity is the product, whether the product is a luxury product or necessary product. We also use the term essential product, right? Whether the product whether the product is luxury or necessary, right? Necessary, in other words, essential, right? So this is another main factor affecting to the product, price elasticity of demand, right? The demand will be elastic if the product is necessary or luxury. The demand will be elastic if the product is luxury, right? Luxury. If the product is luxury, what will happen? When the price increase, we can manage without, right? So there will be significant decrease in the demand for that particular product, right? Especially during this period. Is there a demand for luxury products? No, right? We can manage without, having any luxury products, right? But if the product is essential, what will happen? That's why some essential products, right? Some people are trying to sell at very high prices also, right? Why? Product is essential. When the product is essential, even if the price increase, right, the consumers have to buy that, right? But when the product is luxury, right, when the price increase, there will be huge decrease in demand, because we don't need, we can manage without that luxury product. Therefore, another, very important factor affecting to the elasticity of price elasticity of demand, whether the product is luxury or necessary, right? What else? There are some other factors. Some products are there, what certain consumers consider is not whether it is luxury or necessary. But some people use certain products as what? As a
seasonal item.
Okay. In addition to that, here I'm trying to identify another category. Certain products are there. Some people, they don't, the users of those products, they don't consider whether this is luxury or necessary. But
Addiction. Addiction,
right? So we call the product use as a habit, right? We call habit forming goods, right? Or whether we call it habitual products, whether the product is habit forming product, right? If it is a habit forming, right? In other words, as you mentioned, addicted product, right? If it is, if the product is used as a habit, then what is the condition? The demand will be elastic or inelastic?
Elastic.
Demand will be
Inelastic.
inelastic, right? Not responding to price. Whatever the price, the consumer will, buy the product, right? So that's why, right? So very well what are the examples for this category, right? So, liquor, cigarettes. So that, those products we can consider under this category. Use as a habit. The users of these products, right? So if you are asked why are you using this product, there is no reason. Use as a habit, right? So when someone asks from a smoker, why are you smoking? No reason. Using as a habit, right? And so they don't consider the price, not responding to price. Whatever the price, they will buy the product, right? So they will sacrifice any other product to buy that particular product. So that's why the product used as a habit will have inelastic demand, right? So that's why, this elasticity, the price elasticity is important not only for the business firm. For the business firms, it's very important when they are making the setting prices, and it's very important. But this price elasticity also important for another party. What is that?
Household word.
Yeah, more than household. For some decision making, this price elasticity also important for another main party. It is important for the government also.
Government.
Why it is important for the government?
Uh,
With the government?
to provide welfare.
Yeah, more than providing welfare. Yeah, so when they consider welfare also,
They need to control prices.
Consider, but elasticity mainly they consider for another factor. Yeah, more than controlling prices. When the government is imposing taxes, right? So indirect taxes, they need to consider this, right? Usually, right, in our country, of course, right? So that's maybe the case. We can't identify whether whether they consider anything like that, because they have imposed taxes on almost all the products. But usually when the government is imposing indirect taxes in order to generate revenue, because we know the main idea of imposing indirect taxes in developing countries, right? In developing countries is what? Is to earn revenue, which is not a good decision, right? So usually, when we consider taxes, two main types of taxes there: direct taxes and indirect tax,
Direct
right?
taxes.
In a developed country, major part of the government tax revenue they should generate using direct taxes or indirect tax. If it is a good tax system,
Direct.
right? Direct tax,
Direct
right?
tax.
Major part should be generated from direct taxes, right? Why? Direct taxes means no burden to, not that much of burden to people. Taxes means anyway there is a burden, but when we consider direct and indirect taxes, right? Indirect taxes means more burden to the consumers, right? But direct taxes you have to pay only when your income is above that particular level. But indirect taxes, as I mentioned very briefly last day, those
Each
are
and
the
everything.
taxes imposed on goods and services. Therefore, all the consumers will have to pay the same tax. A rich person and poor person has to pay the same tax, which is not fair, right? So uh, that's why it is generally accepted when government is imposing taxes, right? So when the government is imposing taxes, they should generate more tax revenue from direct taxes, right? But in developing countries, one main feature, major part of the government tax revenue they generate from indirect taxes, right? So that's the case in Sri Lanka also. In Sri Lankan tax revenue, government tax revenue, more than 80% they generate from indirect taxes, right? So in that case, so when the government is imposing indirect taxes to generate revenue, they should select product with elastic demand or inelastic. To get the best result, the government has to select the product with elastic demand or inelastic. To generate the highest possible tax revenue, it is better to impose the tax on products with elastic demand or inelastic.
Inelastic.
Inelastic demand, because indirect taxes means the most that means almost possible result is price increase. When the price increase, if there is a huge decrease in the content demand, then what will happen? The government will not be able to get a good tax rate. That means what should happen? Even if the price increase, there should be there should not be huge decrease in the content demand. That's why, right? What are the product government usually select? They select essential products, right? Why? Demand is inelastic. Essential products. So when you consider the prices, taxes imposed included in this, well, more than 50% of the price represent taxes, and that's why the taxes imposed on these habit-forming goods, cigarettes, liquor, more than 50% of the price represent taxes, right? Therefore, the government select products with inelastic demand to impose indirect tax in order to generate very high tax revenue, right? So that's why it is important for the government. So in addition to that, as you mentioned, to provide welfare services also, elasticity is important for the government, right? Then okay, what are the other main, these are main factors affecting to the price elasticity of demand: availability of substitutes, the percentage of consumer income spent for the product, whether the product is luxury or necessary, and whether the product is habit forming. What else? So another thing, the time period, right? Time period since the price change, right? The time period since the price change, which means uh, usually as soon as the price of a particular product increase, the demand will be elastic or inelastic. In other words, I mean in the short run. In the short run, when the price of a particular product increase significantly, demand will be elastic or inelastic relatively for any product. Relatively, demand will be elastic or
In the
inelastic.
short run, it can be inelastic.
In the short run, it will be inelastic. Why? As soon as the price increase, it is not possible for the consumers to find substitutes, right? So sometimes, even though there are substitutes, it may be very difficult for the consumers to get used to some other product, right? Therefore, sometimes to produce another product, and it will take a lot of time. So in the short run, usually the demand is more inelastic. But in the long run, right, it may be possible to produce some other substitute product, and then in the long run, it may be more elastic, right? Especially when we consider this period, now a lot of people considering, right, thinking about the local production of many products, right? But suddenly, is it possible to stop these imported products? Suddenly it's not possible, right? Suddenly it's not possible. So that's why even if the price increase, still we need to buy these products. But in the long run, right, when the product, when the local production increase, and so there may be more option for the consumers, then it may be possible for the consumers to decrease the demand for the imported products, right? Therefore, when as soon as the price of the product increase, right, in the short run, demand will be inelastic, but it may be elastic in the long run, right? The consumers may be get used to some other product, the producers may be able to increase the local production, and as a result, in the long run, demand will be more elastic, right? In addition to that, the point you mentioned earlier, also we can consider for this category quality of the product. So that is logical factor, right? Quality of the product, but this is limited to the purchasing power of the consumers. Even if the quality is very high, if the consumers' purchasing power is not up to that, what will happen when the price increase? The content demand will decrease, right? But that is the logical point, right? So these are the main factors that will affect to the price elasticity of demand. Okay. So with respect to the price elasticity of demand, we discussed number of points, right? What is the meaning of price elasticity of demand? How to calculate that? And once you calculate that, what are the different possible answers we can get, right? And based on the answers, what are the categories we can identify? But out of the possible theoretical categories, what are the practical categories? And we should know the meaning of elastic and inelastic demand, and impact of that on total revenue, and what are the main factors affecting to the price elasticity of demand. Okay, so once we identify the key factors related to the price elasticity of demand, the other elasticity conditions are very easy to analyze, right? So when you know the meaning of price elasticity of demand, right, other elasticity conditions, there are no so many factors like this, right? So there are no so many factors to analyze like this. So only a few things we need to identify relating to the other two main elasticity conditions. That means if we consider the cross elasticity of demand, when we consider the cross elasticity of demand, right, what is the meaning of cross elasticity of demand? What is the meaning of cross elasticity of demand? Right? So here, cross elasticity of demand means when the price of some other product change, right? When the price of some other product change, what is the change in the price of the product under concern? So there, it is important to know what is this product, what is the other product. That is right. So that is important. We need to identify what is this product and what is the other product, right? For example, so if we consider the product, own product, right? So in other words, we call product under consideration. Product under consideration, right? Right? Consideration. Product under consideration is this, and this is the other product. This is the other product. Right now, if X is the product under consideration, in other words, own product, Y is the other product. Now, under the cross elasticity of demand, what we analyze? What we analyze? When the price of which product change?
Yeah.
Price of?
Difference between products under consideration and other product.
Yeah, actually, cross elasticity of demand means what? We want to analyze what is the responsiveness of quantity demand of a product when the price of some other product change. That means we need to consider the percentage change in the price of which product? Price of X or Y?
Y.
Price of Y. When the price of Y change by certain percentage, what is the percentage change in the quantity demanded of
X.
Considered product.
of X product under consideration, right? What is the percentage change in the quantity demand of X, right? So that is the meaning of cross elasticity of demand, right? So that is the meaning of cross elasticity of demand. The cross elasticity of demand means when the price of, right, when the price of Y change, when the price of other product, that means when the price of Y change, what is the change in the price of quantity demand of X, right? What is the percentage change in quantity demand of X, quantity demand of X when the price of Y change? That is the meaning of cross elasticity of demand, right? The cross elasticity of demand is that, right? So in fact, you can see it's almost the previous thing, right? But only difference here we consider the percentage change in the price of the own product. So that's why we don't need to consider XY here, because it is the change in the price of the same product and the quantity demand of the same product, right? Quantity demand of the same product. Therefore, in this case, we need to consider what is the percentage change in the quantity demand of the product under consideration when the price of the other product change, right? We can say when we calculate the price elasticity of demand, right? The answer for the price elasticity of demand will be positive or negative. What do you think? The answer for the price elasticity of demand will be positive or negative, right? So when we calculate the value of price elasticity of demand, the answer will be positive or negative. Answer we get here will be positive or negative, right? Simple question. When the price of one product change, we want to measure what is the change in quantity demand, right?
Negative.
So when you calculate that, the answer for this one will be positive or negative.
Negative.
Answer will be negative. Always the price elasticity of demand will be negative, right? Why? Because there is inverse relationship between price and quantity demand. If the price increase, quantity demand decrease. If the price decrease, quantity demand increase. Therefore, price elasticity of demand, right? The value of, right? The value of PED is always negative, always negative, right? The price elasticity of demand is always negative, right? Why? There is a negative relationship between price and quantity, right? Then so if we get the answer here as -2, if we get the answer as -2, right? If we get answer for this calculation as -2, now what is this category? What is the category relevant for this product? The demand is elastic or inelastic,
Inelastic.
right? Theoretically inelastic. Why? -2 means less than 1. Then actually, then there will not be elastic demand at all. Why? If the PED is always negative, always answer is less than 1, then what is the important point here? In PED, right? In price elasticity of demand, it is not considered, sign is not considered, right? Therefore, the PED is always negative. Therefore, we don't consider the sign of the product, sign of the PED. We consider only the absolute value, right? So therefore, only the absolute value is considered, right? Therefore, only the absolute value, right? Absolute value. Only the absolute value. Absolute value is considered. Absolute value is considered, right? This is applicable only to the price elasticity of demand, right? For other elasticity conditions, we don't consider. We have to consider the sign also, but PED we consider only the absolute value, right? Only the absolute value should be considered, right? So in PED we don't consider the sign because always it is minus. It is always minus. Therefore, if we get the answer of -2, demand is elastic. We don't consider minus. -2 means we consider as 2, right? So we should not consider the sign, only the absolute value is considered, right? And sign should be, right? So which means sign should be ignored, right? So we have to ignore the sign, only the absolute value is considered. Okay, then, but cross elasticity of demand, we need to consider the sign. Cross elasticity of demand, the value of cross elasticity of demand usually is right, the price elasticity of demand. For the price elasticity of demand, as I mentioned earlier, we use the term PE. We use the word term PE. But for the cross elasticity of demand, usually what is the sign we use? XCD, right? So we use X, right? For the cross elasticity of demand, usually X is used, X cross, right? Cross elasticity of demand. So, but these are not essential, but in most of the economic books, these are the signs used for these main elasticity condition. So cross elasticity of demand means when the price of some other product change, what is the change in the content demand of the product under consideration? Right? When the price of some other product change, what is the change in the content demand of the product under consideration? So that is the meaning of cross elasticity of demand, right? The meaning of cross elasticity of demand is that. And when you calculate the cross elasticity of demand, the sign may be, right? So what will be the sign? Sign will be positive or negative, right? So here, as I mentioned, it is not necessary to consider the sign. Why? Sign is always negative. But when we consider the cross elasticity of demand, what will be the sign? Sign will be positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive. It's always positive. Cross elasticity of demand, it's always positive.
Because it has a positive relationship.
That means always cross elasticity of demand will be positive, right? Actually, the cross elasticity of demand can be either positive or negative, right? The cross elasticity of demand can have both values. How is that? Right? How is that? Cross elasticity of demand can have both positive and negative value, right? The value of XCD. The value of XCD can be positive or negative, right? You can say value of XED, it can be positive or negative. Sometimes it can be positive, sometimes it can be negative. That depends on what? Sometimes it may be positive, sometimes the value will be positive, and sometimes it may be negative. That depends on what? Right? So whether the value of the cross elasticity of demand is positive or negative depends on what? That depends on the nature of the other product. That depends on the nature of the other product. That means for some products, right, the cross elasticity of demand will be positive. For some product, it will be negative. What is the category that will have positive cross elasticity of demand? Because other product means, there are two categories we discussed.
Yeah.
Other product means
Complements.
Complements and
Substitute.
substitutes, right? Substitutes and complements, right? That means for one category, the cross elasticity of demand value will be positive. For one category, it will be negative. For which category it is positive? It is positive for substitutes or complements. Yeah.
Complements.
Actually, it's positive for substitute goods.
Substitute.
Right? Yeah. So it is positive for substitute goods. Why is that? Because substitutes means these are the alternatives, options, right? Which means when the price of a substitute good increase, then what will happen? This product is cheaper in the market. This product is more attractive in the market, right? We can use a simple example, then it will be very clear, right? Very easy to understand. So if the product is substitute, right? For example, substitute butter and margarine, right? Suppose this product is butter. The product under consideration is butter. The other product is margarine. When margarine price increase, what will happen to the butter demand?
Demand goes up.
Butter demands go up, right? Goes up, right? When the price of, that means when the margarine price increase, butter demand will increase, right? That means when the when the price of the product, right, when the price of margarine increase, butter demand will increase, positive, right? So when the margarine price decrease, then demand for butter will decrease, positive, right? But what is the condition for complementary goods? There will be a negative relation, right? There will be a negative relationship between, for the cross-elastic demand for complementary goods, right? For complementary goods, the cross-elasticity of demand will be negative, right? So if you use a very similar example, now, so complementary goods, for example, still if you consider butter as the product under consideration, then what will be the complementary good? Bread. Bread is the complementary good, right? But bread and butter, right? So now butter is the own product under consideration. The other product is bread. Now when the bread price increase, what will happen to butter demand? Butter demand decrease, right? So negative relationship, right? Which means the cross elasticity of demand can have both positive and negative value, and it is positive for substitutes and it is negative for complementary goods, right? Is that clear? The cross elasticity of demand, right? So it is the response of the content demand of a product with respect to the change in price of some other product. Other product means it can be a substitute, it can be a complement. And if it is a substitute good, right, there will be a positive relationship between price of the other product and demand of the product under consumption. And the relationship will be negative if it is complementary. This is also important for a firm because when they are providing the product, they should consider this relationship. When the price of a substitute product increase, they know the demand for their product will increase, then the firm should be ready to increase the production and to provide more units from that product, right? So this relationship will be important for the business decisions, right? For business decisions, this will be important, right? So cross-elasticity of demand, it can be, there can be both positive and negative value for the cross-elasticity of demand, right? So income elasticity of demand also we can very easily analyze. The income elasticity of demand, you already know the meaning of income elasticity of demand. Income elasticity of demand means what? When we analyze the price elasticity of demand, it is very easy to discuss other. What is the meaning of income elasticity of demand? When change in consumer income, right? What is the response of the content demand of the product, right? So it's very easy to analyze this. With respect to a given percentage change in consumer income, what is the percentage change in the content demand of the product? So that is the meaning of income elasticity of demand. And usually this is denoted as YED in most of the economic books, right? YED. Y is used as yield, right? But these are not essential, as I mentioned, right? So some these are the letters generally used, but which are not essential. So when you know the meaning, you can use any letter. So the income elasticity of demand means what is the response of the content demand of a product with respect to the change in the consumer income, right? With respect to the change in the consumer income, what is the response of the content demand? And we discussed the value of PED is always negative. The value of cross elasticity of demand can be positive or negative. What about the value of income elasticity of demand? Positive or negative?
Both.
Sorry?
Can be both.
Yeah, that also can have both positive and negative values. Right? That also can have both positive and negative values. It will be positive for which kind of goods?
Luxury goods.
Yeah, and actually we can say it is positive for any normal good. Any normal good, right? It is the income elasticity of demand is positive. But it is negative for when the income increase, demand for certain products decrease. What is that get?
Inferior
What is
goods?
that? Inferior good. Inferior goods, right? So if the products are considered as inferior, right, low quality goods, right, then what will happen? When the consumer's income increase, the consumer is moving to better products, right? The consumer is moving to better products, which means the demand for inferior goods, right? These low quality goods will
Decrease.
decrease. The low quality goods will decrease. Right? Yeah, so that is what we call normal goods. We can categorize into two categories. What are the two categories? Which we categorize which we already is into two categories. The value of income elasticity demand will be very positive and high. Sometimes it is positive and low. That depends on what. It is positive for any normal goods. Sometimes the value is high value. Sometimes the value is low, right? Sometimes high YED, YED, right? That depends on what. That depends on what. That depends on, you know, sometimes high value, sometimes low value. Positive high, sometimes positive low. That depends on what. Value will be high. That means you already know the two categories. You mentioned one example, luxury goods. Luxury, that means income elasticity demand will be positive and high for which category, and it is low for which category. You know the two categories. Normal good means under normal goods we have two categories. What are the two categories? Luxuries, necessaries. Luxuries and necessaries. Which category has high value? Which category has low value?
Luxury has high and necessity has low.
Exactly. Luxury products have high income elasticity of demand value. When the income increase, the demand for luxury goods increase very significantly. But the necessities, even if our income is low, we have to buy. That means when the income increase, there is no huge increase. Because anyway, we have to use the minimum, required level. When the income increase, there is no huge increase, right? That's why. So the value high YED value will be there for luxuries. For luxuries, for luxury goods, or let's say luxuries, and low income elasticity of demand value for necessaries. Right? So which means normal goods we can further divide into two categories as luxuries and necessaries. Right? Luxuries and necessaries. So in this way, the income elasticity of demand we can categorize into relevant category. Right? So here, is that clear? Income elasticity of demand. Right. So others also clear. So if there is any question, please ask. The key points relating to the three elasticity of demand categories we discuss here, right? Price elasticity of demand, then cross elasticity of demand, and income elasticity of demand. Right. So is that clear?
Yeah. Yes.
Right. Okay. Then maybe we can take maybe 10 minutes break, 10-15 minutes break, and after that, 15 minutes break. Okay, so we'll take maybe 15 minutes break, and after that, so we'll discuss velocity of supply is small part. So we don't have to spend much time, and we can start government intervention.
Okay.
Okay. Himani.
Oh sir, එහෙනම්
හිමාලි එහෙනම් මේ පොඩි බ්‍රේක් එකක් දීලා අපි විනාඩි 15කින් විතර පටන් ගමු.
හරි සර් මියුට් කරලා යන්නමයි මේකෙම ඉන්න පුළුවන්.
හරි
හරි සර්. වීඩියෝ එකත් අයින් කළා නැත්නම් data යනවනේ. පල්ලෙහා තියෙනවා මේ start video කියලා තැන.
Okay, shall we start?
Yes,
Right.
funny time of them.
Right. Everyone there? Others
Yeah.
also there? Right. Uh, the points we discussed so far, is that clear? Any questions?
Clear. Okay.
Right. Okay. So you can see the note, right?
Yes.
Okay. Right. So we discussed the key concepts relating to the elasticity of demand. Elasticity of demand uh, we analyze under three main factors, right? Actually, as I mentioned earlier, uh, generally elasticity of demand is analyzed under three main factors, but it is not limited to these factors. So we can measure the responsiveness of demand to any factor affecting to that, any of its determinants. Right? I remember in our chartered accountancy study pack, there are four factors. They have considered another factor, right? So that is advertising expenditure, right? So right. So they have considered advertising expenditure, uh, advertising, advertising, right? So it was called as advertising elasticity of demand, right? Advertising elasticity of demand, which means when right, advertising elasticity of demand. So which measures when the advertising expenditure change, what is the responsiveness of quantity demand of product. So in that way, this elasticity of demand we can analyze under any factor, right? So right, so this is what I have seen in addition to these three factors in uh, some of the books that I have referred. So in this way, in some books different factors may be considered. Advertising elasticity of demand means, right, so it's not a completely different concept, right? The meaning is same. What is the meaning of advertising elasticity of demand? What is the responsiveness of the content demand with respect to the advertising expenditure, right? So when the firm spend for advertising for a particular product, the quantity demand may increase very significantly. For some products, the change in the quantity demand may be very, very low. Then no point of spending for that type of advertising for that type of product. So that's why it is important, right? So in this way, so elasticity of demand can be analyzed with respect to any factor. But as I mentioned, the reason for not considering some of the factors, we can't measure. For example, quality of the product is one main determinant for the demand. But is it possible to measure what is the percentage change in quality? That is not measurable, right? So you know another factor affecting the demand is consumer taste, right? But is it possible to measure the change in taste?
No.
That is not possible. So that's why. And another factor affecting to demand is weather condition. But is it possible to measure what is the percentage change in weather condition? That is analyze for the elasticity of demand, right? Elasticity of demand, where that is it's not possible to measure, right? It's not possible to measure. That's why mainly the elasticity of demand is analyzed with respect to these factors, right? Then when we consider the elasticity of supply, we have to spend only very little time, right? So we don't need to spend much time for the to discuss elasticity of supply, because elasticity of supply, it is exactly the same concept, right? The opposite, right? That means the elasticity of supply means what? The right? And the other benefit, we don't need to consider these other factors, right? Elasticity of demand usually we analyze with respect to only one factor. But in that right, with respect to only one factor, that is price of the own. We usually we analyze elasticity of demand with respect to only one factor, that is price of the own product, right? Price of the own product. Therefore, when we consider the elasticity of supply, the meaning is simple. So you know what is the elasticity of supply? It is the responsiveness of
Supply.
supply to its determinants, right? Supply to its determinant. And the other thing, you know, and similar to the previous analysis, we measure what is the percentage change in quantity supply, right? What is the percentage in quantity supply? And in elasticity of supply, usually we analyze only one factor, right? That is, what is the responsiveness of quantity supply with respect to the price of the own product. Therefore, only the price elasticity of supply analyze the elasticity of supply, right? So the elasticity of supply we analyze with respect to one main factor, that is the price of the own product, right? Price of the own product. So when the price of the own product change, what is the response? So that is called the price elasticity of supply. So which is calculated. What is the responsiveness of quantity supply, right? What is the responsiveness of quantity supply with respect to the percentage change in price of the own product, right? The price elasticity of supply means what is the change in, what is the change in the, what is the change, what is the percentage change in quantity supply of a product, right? What is the percentage in quantity supply of a product with respect to a given percentage change in price, right? So percentage change in quantity supply, right? And the value of price elasticity of supply is always
Positive.
positive, right? So always positive. Therefore, it's much more easier than price elasticity of demand, right? So price elasticity of supply is always positive. Right. And when we calculate the price elasticity of supply, right? Price elasticity of supply, which is the percentage change in quantity supply as a percentage change in, as a result of percentage change in price, we can categorize it into the same 5 categories. Therefore, we don't need to spend much, you know, any time for this. The percentage change in, you know, price elasticity of supply means uh, we know the meaning, and it can be categorized into the same categories, right? Same categories, that is uh, perfectly inelastic, inelastic, right? Inelastic, then unitary elastic, and elastic, and perfectly elastic. So in this way, the price elasticity of supply can be categorized into the same 5 categories. Right, exactly the same 5 categories, and criteria also same. If the price elasticity of supply is zero, uh, zero, we call it perfectly inelastic supply. If it is more than zero but less than one, inelastic supply, and it may be equal to one, more than one, or infinity, right? Then so one more point which will be important. So what are the factors affecting to the price elasticity of supply, right? Unlike demand, usually when we consider the elasticity of supply, when the price increase, any supply is willing to supply more, because we know When the price increase, the profit margin, while the other factors same, profit margin will increase. Therefore, the suppliers are willing to supply more. Then, what are the main factors affecting to the elasticity of supply? Right? When the price increase, the supply of some products will increase very significantly, but the supply of some products will increase only very marginally. Right? So that is what we call elastic and inelastic supply.
Elastic.
Right? So why some products have elastic supply and some products have inelastic supply? What are the main factors affecting to supply? Price elasticity.
Production capacity.
Production capacity. One thing is production capacity, right? That means we can call whether there is a spare production capacity, right? Spare production capacity. That is the most important thing, right? Production capacity. That means if a particular firm has already used the total production capacity, right? Capacity they have already utilized. Then suppose price increase significantly, can they increase the supply? No, right? Already they have used the maximum production capacity. If the maximum production capacity has utilized, even if the price increase, they can't increase the supply, right? That means the supply will be inelastic. But if a particular firm has a lot of spare production capacity, then what will happen? When the price increase, they can increase the supply significantly. So therefore, the most important thing, as you very correctly mentioned, the main factor affecting to the price elasticity of supply is the production capacity, right? So in addition to that, what else? Right? Unlike demand, when the price increase, suppliers are willing to supply more. Therefore, here the price elasticity of demand, price elasticity of supply, mainly determined by the ability to supply, right? So that's why the main thing is production capacity. Whether there is a spare production capacity, then it is possible to increase the supply. Otherwise, not. It's not possible. What else?
Inventory.
Inventory, right? The stock, right? Availability of stock, right? Inventory. That is another important thing, right? Availability of inventory, right? Inventory of maybe raw materials, right? And other finished goods and raw material, right? Availability of inventory of finished goods and raw material, finished goods and materials, right? So that is another very important thing, right? Even if the spare capacity is there, if the inventory is not there, they will not be able to increase the supply. The supply will be inelastic, right? What else? What else? And
Cost
yeah.
of production factors.
Yeah, actually, here when we mainly consider, yeah, we consider the other factors, cost of but that also we can consider, right? And the availability of other factors also, maybe labor, capital, that is also important, right? Availability of other factors, right? Availability of other factors also affecting to the supply. Availability of other factors such as labor. Okay, availability of other factors such as labor also will affect into the price elasticity of supply. And what else? Another thing, when
Time duration.
time duration, that's another very important thing, right? So time period, since the price change, that is very important for price elasticity of supply also, right? Very similar to the demand. In the short run, supply will be inelastic, right? In the short run, supply will be inelastic. Why? Even though price increase, supply will not be able to increase the supply suddenly. So they may have to arrange other factors, and the time duration is very important. Right? What else? Right? Another factor, maybe if the firm is producing several products, right, and the factors used to produce other goods, if they can use for the other products also for this product, then it is possible to increase the supply, right? That is
Substitute.
Exactly. That is called factor substitutability. And I think one of you maybe having the TV watching the news program is running. I think better better to mute.
Galaxy A70 කවුද? Galaxy A70 කවුද? හිමාලි
Himali,
ඔව් සර්.
Himali මේ එකෙනෙක් මේ දැන් හරි වගේ නේ. අර නිවුස්
පොඩක්
දාලා
ඉන්න
තියෙනවා
මට සර් පොඩක් ඉන්න සර්. දැන් කියන්න සර්.
දැන් හරි වගේ අර ඉස්සෙල්ලා එක්කෙනෙක් නිවුස් දාලා තිබුණා මම හිතන්නේ ටීවී එකේ කිට්ටුවම එහින්දා මෙතන මේ
ඔය Galaxy ෆෝන් එකෙන් කවුරු හරි ලොග් වෙලා ඉන්නව නේද සර්? අර පොඩ්ඩ ඔයාගේ මේ සවුන්ඩ් පොඩ්ඩක් මියුට් කරලා තියාගන්න නැත්නම් සර්ට සද්ද ඇහෙනවා ගෙදර. හරි?
All right. Okay. Thank you. Right. So that is called factor substitutability. Factor substitutability. So if it is possible to substitute factors, then it is easy to increase the supply, right? But if it is not possible to substitute factors, even if the price increase, it is not possible to increase the supply if it is not possible to identify other resources also not there, right? So these are the main factors, right? These are the key factors that affect to the price elasticity of supply, right? Right, based on this also we can identify for some products. So here actually so based on these factors you can identify. It is not possible to give exactly examples, right? That means we can't name products because these are several key factors that affect to the supply of any products, right? Whether spare capacity is there, whether the inventory of finished goods and materials there, whether it is possible to find required other factors such as labor, capital, right? And what is the time period? So generally in the short run supply will be inelastic, but in the long run it may be more elastic. Then the other thing is the factor substitutability. So these are the key factors that will affect to the price elasticity of supply. Okay, so then here the key elasticity concepts we discuss what are the main factors related to the elasticity of demand and elasticity of supply, right? And then we can move to the government intervention part. In fact, there are more details relating to this elasticity and the key points given in that note that I have already shared with you, right? So there are this under the price theory note. Under the price theory note, this is given, right? So this is given under that price theory note. More details available under that price theory note. Right. So can you see this note?
Yeah. Yes.
Right. So here in this price theory note, all the points we discussed explain in detail, right? Demand, supply, equilibrium, changes to the equilibrium, and elasticity. In detail, it's given what is the meaning of price elasticity, and the points we discussed are given in detail here. right? So the factors affecting to price elasticity of demand in very detail with examples, everything is given here, right? And why it is important, all the points are given, right? So before we are moving to the government intervention, one more concept we have to discuss, that is consumer surplus and producer surplus, right? Consumer surplus and producer surplus, that's another important concept uh, which will be important for the government, in order to discuss government intervention also, that is important, right? uh, Consumer surplus and producer surplus, right? So what is the meaning of this consumer surplus and producer surplus, right? Consumer surplus and producers surplus, producers surplus, right? So what is the meaning of this concept, consumer surplus and producer surplus?
Consumer surplus, it's demand, sorry, supply exceeds demand.
uh, no, that is actually, that is called excess supply.
Access
Consumer
supply.
surplus, yeah, that is excess supply. This is actually a different concept. This is a different concept. Consumer surplus means, right? So this consumer surplus and producer surplus, two important concepts when we are analyzing a product, right? So which we can uh, identify graphically very easily, very clearly. We can identify the meaning of this consumer surplus and producer surplus, right? These are very practical concept, right? Very practical concept that you all experience practically, right? You all experience practically this, right? We know when we are trying to buy a particular product, when we are going to buy a particular product, there is a price that we are willing to pay, that we are right willing to pay to buy the product, right? And uh, right then but actual price we may pay may be different, right? This right. So when we are going to buy a particular product, there is a price we are willing to pay, right? For example, if I take a very simple example, suppose you uh, you went to buy a t-shirt in a particular shop, you check the t-shirt, then after you check the t-shirt, you think, right, if I can buy this t-shirt for 1,000 rupees, then it is very good, right? That means the price you are willing to pay for this is 1,000. But when you check the price from with the seller is telling the price of the t-shirt is say 700 rupees. Now what will happen? So the price we can buy the product is less than the price you are willing to pay. So we feel that means you can buy that product for 700, right? When you check the price, you identified, you understood, you realize you can buy this product for 700, but actually you thought you are willing to pay 1,000, right? So which means uh, the price you have to pay is less than the value of that product to you. You think the value of this product is 1,000, right? It worth 1,000 rupees to you, but when you check the price, you understand you can buy that for a price less than that. That is what we call consumer surplus,
Ah, right, right, okay.
right? Is that clear? The consumer
Yeah.
surplus means what? This is a very practical concept. Sometimes I'm sure you have experienced some people telling, "But what is the meaning of that?" Right? So that means the price he has paid is less than the value of that product. This is right in marketing or other subjects. This is called value for money, right? Money is what we pay. Value is what we get. So if you get more than what you pay, that is what we call consumer surplus, right? Is that clear?
Yeah. Yeah. Vice versa, what does it call? That consumer surplus is value what we get is the money what you pay.
Yeah.
Value for the.
And yeah, so sometimes the price we have to pay maybe more than the value we get, right? So that is what you measure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, in that case actually we don't have a surplus. In fact, in that case we are facing unfavorable condition, right?
Yeah.
Because then we are facing there is no specific term in economics for that condition, right? But the earlier one we call consumer surplus. Otherwise, actually, then there is no surplus. But
Okay.
we have to, yeah. So that means in that case, the value we get from the product is less than the amount we have to pay. Then we are not happy. The consumer may not happy, right? The consumer may not be happy customer in that case. But if there is a consumer surplus, that means the consumer is happy, right? Definitely, when the supply is setting the price, so he will keep a reasonable profit margin. That means, right? So that is the point where both parties will happy, right? If there is a consumer surplus, right? So how can we show this graphically? The consumer surplus, if you want to show consumer surplus is there above the equilibrium price or below the equilibrium, right? Consumer surplus will be there above the equilibrium price or below the equilibrium,
Below.
right? That means consumer is getting a surplus, right? If we pay a price more than he is willing or less than he is
He's getting it less than the market price.
willing. The consumer surplus is there above the equilibrium price or below the equilibrium. Because what is the price consumer has to pay actually?
700. The P1.
Yeah, so in this case, P1, right? So in the previous example, it's correct. So 700, right? So which means that is the equilibrium price. That is the equilibrium price. That is the market determined price. That the market determined price. That is the price the consumer has to pay. Consumer has to pay the equilibrium price. So consumer surplus is there if the consumer is willing to pay higher price or lower price.
Low price.
So if the consumer is willing to pay low price, then there is no surplus.
Ah, right. A
If
consumer is
the,
pay 100.
yeah, consumer is willing to pay higher price, but actual price in the market is less. Then there is a consumer surplus. That means the consumer surplus is there above the equilibrium price, right? So consumer surplus is there above the equilibrium price, right? Actually, that means this triangle, this area, the area above the triangle is the consumer surplus, right? The consumer surplus is the area above this equilibrium price. Right. So this this triangular area, this area is the
Surplus.
consumer
Surplus.
surplus, right? This is the consumer surplus. This area is the consumer surplus, right? The right, if the price consumer is willing to pay is more than the equilibrium price, there will be a surplus. There will be a surplus. So consumer surplus is the area above the equilibrium price and below the demand curve. Because this arises because there are consumers who has the ability to pay different prices. As you correctly mentioned earlier, for the same product, some consumers have surplus, some consumers may not have the surplus. If a particular consumer for the same product, if the price he is willing to pay is less than the market price,
Yeah.
he doesn't have a surplus, right? So for the same example I mentioned earlier, if one consumer think if I can buy this t-shirt for 600, when he check the price, if it is 700, there is no surplus for him, right? Therefore, the same product, there may be some consumers with low purchasing power, some consumers with high purchasing power. So, this consumer surplus directly related to that. So, consumer surplus is the area above the equilibrium price, right? So, that is the consumer surplus, right? So, we can say consumer surplus is right. Consumer surplus is the price, is the difference between the price consumer is willing to pay and the price consumer is actually paying, right? So that is the meaning of consumer surplus. So consumer surplus is the difference between the price consumer is willing to pay and the price consumer is actually paying. So, right, so this shaded area is the consumer surplus, right? So which is the difference between the price consumer is willing to pay and the price consumer is actually paying. And so the similar concept we can apply for the producer. That means, what is the meaning of producer surplus? Producer surplus means producer also, when the seller is trying to sell a particular product, there is a price producer is willing to sell this product,
Yes.
right? And suppose one seller is going to market with some vegetables grown in his farm. So he thinks, if I can sell 1 kilo for 50 rupees, that's good. I can get a reasonable profit. But when he went to the market, the price of a kilo of that particular product is 100 rupees. Now what happened? So he is willing to sell at 50, but actually the actual price the product is trading in the market is 100.
100.
Then he is getting a surplus.
50 rupees
That is
surplus.
what we call the producer
Producer
surplus.
surplus.
That is called producer surplus. So producer surplus is there, which range? Below the equilibrium price. If the actual price seller is willing to sell the product is less than the market, right? Then there is a producer surplus, right? So producer surplus we can identify. So it is the area below the equilibrium price, right? So it is the area below the equilibrium price. Right below the equilibrium price, producer surplus will be there, right? Producer surplus is the area below the equilibrium price, which indicate the difference between the price producer is willing to sell the product and the price producer is actually selling the product, right? So producer surplus is there if the market price is more than the price he is willing to sell the product, right? So he is willing to sell the product at a certain price, but when you check the market price, if the market price is more than that, then there is a surplus for the producer, right? So that is the meaning of producer surplus. So right, that is the meaning of producer surplus. So producer surplus is producer surplus is the difference between the price producer is willing to sell the product and the actual price he can sell the product, right? So is that clear? Right, this consumer surplus and producer surplus, is that clear?
Yes.
Right. So these are two important things, right? Actually, when there is no government intervention, at the equilibrium, the consumer surplus and producer surplus will be maximum. Consumer surplus and producer surplus will be maximum at the equilibrium when there is no government intervention. And so here there is no government intervention, only the consumers and producers are there. Therefore, the aggregate of the consumer surplus and producer surplus is known as economic surplus, right? So when there is no government intervention, right? When there is no government intervention, so we can say when there is no government intervention, when there is no government intervention, economic surplus is equal. Economic surplus is equal to the consumer surplus plus producer surplus, right? It is equal to the consumer surplus plus producers surplus, right? Consumer surplus plus producers surplus. Okay, so when there is no government intervention, the consumer's surplus and producer surplus, the aggregate of these two is called the economic surplus. But when, because we know in economics, we consider three parties, right? This is when there is no government intervention. But when the government intervene, right, so the impact of the government also we need to consider. right? So we have to consider what is the impact to the government. Whether the government is getting a benefit or whether government has a cost of this intervention, and that should be adjusted, right? But if there is no government intervention, only the consumers and producers are there for a particular product, then the economic surplus for that particular product is equal to the consumer surplus plus producer surplus. Okay, so consumer surplus and producer surplus, is that clear?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, then we can, with these concepts we discuss up, relating to demand, supply, equilibrium, and changes to the equilibrium. Now we can move to the government intervention into the market. Right, government intervention into the market. Government intervention into the market. Right. We know usually the the price and quantity, so everything will be determined by market forces, right? And we discuss how to create the equilibrium and how to change the equilibrium. So these are the changes to the equilibrium when there are changes in market forces. But even without changes in market forces, sometimes the equilibrium can be changed. That is when the government intervene into the market, right? So government can intervene into the market to achieve several objectives in number of ways. What are the reasons for the government to intervene into the market? Why government is intervening into the goods and services market?
To control prices.
Yeah. So why is that? What are the reasons? Right. So you mentioned one main method of intervention. What are the reasons for the government to intervene into the market?
To reduce any failures in the market.
Exactly. So that is the one, that is actually main reason we call to rectify market failures in the market, because market forces mainly decide the price and the quantity that will be traded in the market. But always the market forces market forces determine price may not be fair. The price determined by the market forces always may not be fair. Sometimes it may not be fair. It may not be fair either to the consumers or it may not be fair to the producers, right? So when it is not fair to one party, when it will not help the market participants to meet their requirement, that is called market failure, right? So that is called market failure. So in order to rectify market failures, government has to intervene. Government has to intervene, right? So that is one main reason for the government to intervene, right? What else?
To maintain equal fair and share.
Yeah, so again, to maximize social welfare, government has to intervene, right? So for that also, government use number of different methods. For the previous one, as you correctly mentioned, in order to rectify market failures, main method used by the government is controlling prices. Government impose controlling prices, right? That may be for the benefit of consumers or for the benefit of producers, right? So that is one main method of government intervention, right? So we call price controls, right? Price control, that is one main method of government intervention, right? One main method of government intervention is called price control. Price control can be used for the benefit of which party? Price control is used for the benefit of which party?
Household.
Consumers or producers?
Consumer.
Yeah, consumers. Only for consumers?
No. Equal to producers also.
Yeah, price control can be used for the benefit of both parties, right? Price controls can be used for the benefit of consumers or for the benefit of producers, right? What is the price control used for the benefit of consumers? Why, right? In which situation?
Price ceilings.
Yeah, so that means when the price decided by the market forces is too high. When the price is too high, then the controlling price should be imposed, which is known as price ceiling. As you mentioned, price ceiling. Or we also use another term that is called maximum price or minimum price. That is called
minimum
maximum
price,
right? So price control. Yeah. So there are two types of price control, right? So we call maximum price and minimum price, right? Maximum price and minimum price. Maximum price, as you mentioned, that is also called price ceiling. And the minimum price, what is the other term used for minimum price?
Price flooring.
Price floors, right? So minimum price. maximum price and minimum price, or price ceiling and price floor. So that is maximum price used for the benefit of consumers, minimum price used for the benefit of producers, right? Okay, so this is mainly to rectify market failures when the price determined by the market forces is not fair, right? What else? What are the other methods? You mentioned to provide some benefit to certain parties, government intervening in the market.
Subsidy.
Yeah, government provides subsidies. That is to provide some benefit to certain parties, government intervene into the market by providing subsidies for certain products. We have seen for certain products, certain subsidies are given, right? Given at a very low price to the consumers.
Fertilizer.
Fertilizer, for example, yeah, that's correct, right? What else? What are the other reasons and other methods?
Impose tax.
Impose tax, right? Which taxes?
Indirect tax.
Indirect taxes. Indirect taxes. That is, that is the other. Actually, probably the most common method of government intervention into the goods and services market is indirect taxes, right? Most common method, because price control we can see only maybe rarely. Subsidies only for few goods, but indirect taxes, that is the most common method of government intervention, right? Almost all the goods include indirect taxes, right? So that is why indirect taxes are imposed. We already discussed, right? Mainly in developing countries, the main reason is what?
For government revenue.
Mainly for government revenue. But indirect taxes should be used for some better, to achieve some better objectives.
Infrastructure development.
Yeah, so that means in fact mainly
Infrastructure development.
Yeah. In addition to that, in addition to infrastructure, what else?
Social services.
Sorry.
Social services.
Social services and
maintaining government enterprise.
Maintaining government enterprise, and yeah. So then we can also put it in more general way, right? So these indirect taxes can be used to discourage the consumption of some products, right? And that means especially which kind of products? These imported goods, right? To discourage. And what is the other objective of the same act? That is to encourage local
production.
Local production. So that's why, these days, right? So you may have seen in news that government is trying to stop imports of many products and limit a number of other products. And what is the main argument? What is the main point they mentioned? That is to encourage the local production. So right. So because in fact, we know that is one serious issue in developing countries, especially we can see very well in our country, right? So because when there is no restriction, right, what has happened? Everything is imported, right? Everything is imported, and due to that, what has happened to the local production? Local, number of industries completely collapse, right? So number of local industries completely collapse since all the unnecessary products are imported, right? And that make a negative impact for many other things, right? What is the other other negative consequences of importing these all the unnecessary things? What are the other negative impact? We experience that.
Our foreign deposits
foreign deposits, right? Our foreign currency deposit decrease, and what else?
Exchange depreciation of
currency depreciation.
Currency depreciation. See, we can see these days now what has happened. The exchange rate has even
192.
192, right? Why? Everything is imported. Everything, right? So these, recently you may have seen in news items and newspapers, even this picture mal import, right?
Yeah.
You may have seen, right? So and a lot of local industries completely collapse. For example, one good example is this local mask. These are not these disposable masks used for to avoid germs, right? But this Westmood, what has happened? Can we see any local produce mask now?
And kite as well. Kite.
Sorry?
Kites.
Kites, exactly. Kites. everywhere imported things. So is it necessary to import these products?
Even the national flag.
Even the national flag, all the religious flags, everything is imported. And what about these mats? Those are imported. So what
Yeah.
is it possible to buy these locally produced mats now? No, these industries collapse. So I saw one TV program. So one particular group, they have done a survey. What has happened to the local mask? Right? We have seen in our small days, right? At Westmood, locally produced mask we have seen.
Ambalam.
So
Ambalam.
Ambalam. They have checked what has happened. They have stopped. The industry is completely collapsed because they can't compete. They can't compete. These are handmade products, very nice, and that is not harmful to the environment, right? But only thing, so it is necessary to make a huge effort to produce one product. Totally. Suppose the market determined price is very high, right? The market determined price is very high. Then the government has to intervene and set controlling price, so which is right. So now in this example, this is the market determined price, and this is the equilibrium price and quantity for this product. Right now, in this case, since right, suppose this price is too high, so which is difficult for the consumers to buy, right? So suppose it is very difficult for the consumers to buy this product at this price. Now government is considering to impose a maximum price. The maximum price, right, to be meaningful, the maximum price should be above the equilibrium price or below the equilibrium. Below the equilibrium price, right? Definitely, the maximum price imposed by the government should be below the equilibrium, right? And suppose this is the maximum price set by the government, and we know as soon as the maximum price introduced, now this is the maximum price government is considering to impose. What will be the immediate result after imposing maximum price? What will happen in the market?
Some producers may increase the price.
No, actually, maximum price means producers have to sell at, right? Then they have to sell at this price. Maximum price means this is a government rule. Government, that means, yeah, producers are willing to sell only at this price. But since this price is considered as very high, which is unfavorable for the consumers, government is going to set the price at a lower level than that, right? Requiring all the producers to sell at this price. So then producers are bound to sell, right? Suppliers are bound to sell at this price because this is the maximum permissible price. They have to sell at this price. Right? Then what will happen? What is the immediate result?
Producers will supply less quantities.
Producers will supply less. Definitely, if they have to supply at a low price, we know if the price is low, the quantity they are willing to supply is less. Definitely, what will happen? The quantity supply will decrease, right? And then what will happen? Right? Then what will happen? What else will happen? And when the price decrease, what will be the response of the consumers?
Consumers want to buy more.
Consumers are willing to buy more. Consumers willing to buy more, but producers are willing to supply less. And as a result of that, what will happen?
Shortage.
What will happen? Yeah.
Shortage in quantity.
Sorry.
Shortage in quantity.
Shortage. That means what is the economic term for that? Immediately after the maximum price is imposed, what will happen in the market? There will be excess
demand.
Excess demand, right? So now this is the maximum price set by the government. Government set this price as the maximum price, right? Government set this price as the maximum price, right? So this is the price the government set as the maximum price. Now, as a result of that, what will happen? Right? What will happen as a result of this maximum price? There will be excess demand in the market, right? Immediately there will be excess demand in the market as a result of that maximum price, right? As soon as the maximum price is introduced, there will be excess demand, shortage in the market, immediately there will be right, because this is the maximum price set by the government, right? This is the maximum price. This is the maximum price. As soon as the maximum price determined by the government, what will happen? Immediately there will be a shortage in the market. Why? Right? As you mentioned very correctly, the quantity demand will increase. Quantity demand will increase because at low price consumers are willing to buy more, but producers are willing to sell less. As a result of that, the imposing the maximum price, there will be a shortage. There will be a shortage, right? Why? The consumers are willing to buy more, right? The quantity demand will increase. The quantity demand will increase, but
Quantity
quantity
supply decrease.
decrease. Quantity supply decrease, right? Since the quantity demand increase and quantity supply decrease, immediately there will be excess demand, right? There will be excess demand in the market, right? So this will be the excess demand, right? So this is the excess demand. Excess demand, as you correctly mentioned, excess demand means there will be a shortage in the market, right? Excess demand, which means there will be a shortage. So this is, normal result of, as soon as maximum price introduced, right, what will happen? There will be shortage in the market, right? Then unless the government takes some steps to control this shortage, what will happen? Right? To implement the maximum price successfully, as soon as the maximum price imposed, definitely government should take steps to avoid shortage, right? Which is the immediate result. So definitely this will happen in the market as soon as the maximum price introduced. Then government should take some steps to control this. Otherwise, what will happen? If the government cannot control the shortage, what will happen?
People look for
Now,
more.
what is the quantity available in the market? Yeah, what is definitely they trying to buy more, but it is not available in the market now. What is the quantity available? Q1, Q2, or Q3?
Q3.
Q3, right? Even though consumers are willing to buy this quantity Q2, but suppliers are willing to supply only Q3, right? Immediately after imposing maximum price, why this happened? Why this happened? Because earlier, before introducing the maximum price, Q1 was there. This quantity was there in the
Yeah.
immediately the quantity is not lost. Then what is happening? What is mainly happening? Suppliers are not willing to sell. They
Willing to
hide the
sell.
stock. They hide the stock. So that's why you may have seen even recently, there was a news that the dal and some items not available. Why? Some suppliers, some sellers, they have hide the stock. Then what the government did? Government said if they found, so there will be fines for those suppliers, those sellers. There will be fines if they hide the stock, right? And even some time back, they have a control maximum price for medicine. But most of these medicines were not available after immediately after introducing the maximum price. Then what the government did? Government said if any party hide the stock, then there will be fines. Certain action should be taken, right? Otherwise, what can happen in the market? Otherwise, what can happen? Otherwise, what can happen? There can be what? Very unfavorable market condition. What is that? That is called
What's it called? Black market.
black market. Black market condition can rise. Black market means what? Black market means what? That is a illegal market condition. What is that? Some suppliers are trying to sell the product at a very high price.
Very high price.
Very high price. Why is that? Since there is a shortage in the market. If there is no, black market is not a market selling by force. It is not selling by force. There should be a willing buyer, right? Some, due to the shortage, some consumers are trying to buy even at a very high price, right? So recently, a few months back, I think last year, that oil shortage was there. One ship was not arrived, and then what happened? In some places, they have a news items. Some people try to sell oil liter for 500 rupees also, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that happened. That means black market. So how can you show the black market using this diagram? Black market actually practically it is not possible to identify what is the exact black market price, right? Why? At different places, it can be so very different prices because that depends on the secret demand and supply, right? Exact black market price we can't analyze,
Yeah.
but theoretically, right, we can show black market price using this graph
Above the equilibrium.
above the equilibrium. But more specifically, how do you show that?
P1. Above P1.
Above P1. How can we identify that price? Right now, black market means, right, it is a illegal market condition. So due to the shortage, right, that means some suppliers are trying to sell at a very high price, right? So that we can identify now what is the quantity available in the market? Q?
1. Sorry,
What is Q3.
Q3.
Then we can identify black market. What is that? To buy this quantity, what is the highest price consumers
Highest
are willing
price.
to pay? Right? What is the price consumers are willing to pay? Right? Some consumers are willing to pay even this price,
This
right?
price.
Even this price. Right? So that means theoretically this is the black market price, right? So actual price even can be even more than this, right?
Yeah.
Now we can see is the black market price, right? This P3 can be considered as the black market price. So this is the black market. Right, so that is the black market price. Okay, but actual black market price can be even more than this, right? Because theoretically this is the black market price, the price the consumers are willing to pay, right? Then so what is the so in this graph we can identify another thing. What is the black market profit? Black market profit is given in which area? So we can show the area which shows the black market profit. What is that area? Area within which range? Because this is the legally permissible price, right? Suppliers should sell the product at this price, but some suppliers will sell at this price. That means what is the black market profit? So this area shows the black market profit, right? So this area shows the black market profit, right? Black market profit. So okay, this shaded area shows the black market profit. This entire shaded area shows the black market profit, right? Because the black marketers, what they will try to do, they will try to buy this product at the government control price and sell at a black market price. So they will try to earn this black market profit. But if black market condition arise, the maximum price control is totally failed. The government objective they will not be able to achieve. Therefore, government should not allow to create a black market. What are the steps they can take to avoid black market? What are the steps government can take to avoid black market? Because black market is the result of what? Black market will arise due to the shortage, excess demand. Is that clear? Right? Is that clear? Right? Okay. So here these are the key points related to the maximum price, right? And after that, we can discuss the balanced part in more detail, the minimum price, subsidies, and indirect taxes. Since we have discussed all the relevant theoretical concepts to discuss government intervention, so in the next session we can complete other government intervention methods in detail and what are the results, what are the possible results, what are the possible adverse results, and in order to avoid these adverse results, what are the actions government can take. So these points we can discuss in detail in the next session, right? So any question related to the points we discussed today? Right? Is right? Right.
Okay.
Okay. From that point, we can discuss in the next session. We'll discuss what are the steps government can take to avoid any unfavorable results which can arise due to these different types of government intervention, right, what are the reasons to use this government intervention, what are the possible results, and what are the steps that can be taken to avoid any unfavorable economic consequences that we can discuss in the next session, right?
Yeah.
Any questions related to the points we discussed today?
Mm,
No.
no.
No, sir.
Right. Okay, then thank you. I'll send you this note,
Okay.
and the balance part we'll discuss in the next session.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you. Hello, Himali.
ඔව් සර් හරි කියන්න සර්
Himali. Oh, මේ complete කරා. මේ එහෙමනම් මම අර note එකක් තියෙනවා මම ඔයාලට email කරන්න Himali.
හරි ඕකේ සර්
Okay.
thank you sir stay safe bye